This is the Final Word Daily, the England-India Test Series, the fourth test from the Oval. Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins. We start this show the same way every day. We've got to summarise the entire day's action in 30 seconds or less. Adam, go.
Deep breath. How am I going to do this? Joe Root wins the toss, sends in India. 3 wickets in the first session. Ollie Robinson on fire. After lunch, Kohli's batting like a god until Robinson finds his outside edge. Chris Wake's doing his thing. He takes 4 wickets. Get to tea. 6 wickets down. Rishabh Pant, brain explosion, caught in the deep. That's 7 down. Then Shardul Thakur. Who saw this coming? Back in the team, 57, a half century in the space of 31 balls. But when he goes, the rest of the team follow. All out 191. In reply, Jasprit Bumrah gets both openers in the same over. A beautiful off-cutter from the veteran Umesh Yadav to knock over Joe Root for 21 before the close of play. England 53 for 3, 139 runs behind. I reckon I might have gone okay. I mean, I don't deserve to have done okay. A lot happened today. No. I've missed a lot, but there you go.
I reckon that was 33 seconds. That was my feeling on that, which is within the 10% margin for error on a busy day. We'll allow that. What a ridiculous day that was of Test cricket. I mean, Chris Woakes coming back into the team and being so influential straight away. You know, this player who's always on the outer, seemingly. He's the Ashwin of England. You know, a highly credentialed player who can't get in for some reason. The fact that Ashwin wasn't picked. But Shardul Thakur was, and that ended up being crucial. But around about lunchtime, or particularly when it's 4 down, you're thinking, well, here they go again. India are going to get rolled for 100, 120, and suddenly it turns on a dime, and it's all in the form of Shardul Thakur. We've been talking through the whole series about the need to have a bit more batting down the order, just something to help out, some insurance policy. And what an insurance policy that was. I mean, it paid out in spades. The fastest 50 ever scored in England in a test match by any player in history. As far as balls faced haven't always been recorded, but that's the fastest one on record. He beat Botham's record of 32 balls. So, you know, a ridiculous day from Shardul Thakur. And then the fact that India turned it around and banged through 3 wickets by stumps, and not just 3 wickets, but Joe Root in there, and Umesh Yadav being the one who comes into the team to do that. I mean, that whole suite of the day, and it all hinged on the inclusions in Woakes on the one hand and Shardul Thakur on the other.
Yeah, that's well summed up. And in the case of Thakur, the conservative and maybe even the sensible option would have been, let's just pick Ashwin, right? Pick Ashwin, you know, Thakur coming back from injury and all the rest of it, but they like him and they like the 4-seamer attack. Kohli said at the toss he would have bowled as well. I'm not saying the pitch was like some green seamer or anything like that, but it did offer something, and he was willing to back that in, even though I suppose England were factoring in Ashwin playing, which was partially informing why Woakes was coming back off very little cricket ahead of Sam Curran, who is a point of difference as a left armour. He is the hometown boy here in South London at Surrey at the Oval. So it wasn't a huge call playing Woakes on the basis that he averages 22 in England, and he was an exceptional cricketer last year. He was the player of the year, I think, in test matches for England. But it was on the basis of how little cricket he played, with the bruised heel, a second 11 game last week, a blast game, but 4 wickets, and he was immaculate. It could have been more. He had Kohli dropped on 22 not long after lunch. There was another drop catch in there too, I think, from Johnny Bairstow, if I recall correctly. But yeah, Woakes did pretty much everything right until Shardul Thakur got after him at the end. Shardul, we talked about him all through the year, Geoff, whether it be at the Gabba, that extraordinary partnership with Washington Sundar in that test match, it proved influential. The one-day series against England where he bowled exceptionally well. Every time he gets an opportunity, and at Trent Bridge before he got injured and was swinging the ball around and took some really important wickets. But this is a guy who takes opportunities as soon as they're offered to him.
Absolutely, and the case with the batting that you mentioned, I mean, I think of the Gabba match as his test debut, because on his actual debut I think he bowled 4 overs maybe and then got injured and didn't feature again in the entire match. But his test match batting debut, if you will, at the Gabba, the fearlessness of it, the partnership that he put on with Washington Sundar that ended up being vital to India winning that match, it was the same sort of situation today. I mean, they were in a perilous position when he came out. And
absolutely.
The clarity of thought, the cleanness of the way he went after the bowling, he had a bit of luck as you need. He edged one over the top of the slips and had 1 or 2 fall safely. But for the most part, they were cleanly out of the middle. He was identifying the gaps where it was safer to hit to, where there was nobody out in the deep and aiming in those directions. He hit down the ground cleanly. He hit along the ground, down the ground, and then he went airborne over mid-wicket when the ball was pitched up. And so he made the bowlers sort of come at him a bit, trying to pin him on the pad or hit his stumps, and he took full toll.
And look, the collapse was on. Either side of T. Rahane, who batted really well, by the way. I mean, I'm sure there'll be comments saying that Rahane should never play for India again, etc. And that's the way it goes. I get that it's binary with Indian top 6 players. Either they're the best player in the world or the worst player in the world. But Rahane did bat well until he got a great ball from Craig Overton. Much improved bowler. The way that he moves it around, outside edge, nice low catch from Moeen. And just after T, Rishabh Pant, who knows? It's mindless, thoughtless batting. I mean, I think the 6th ball he faced, he tried to pop it into the gasometer over there off Ollie Robinson, which just seemed ridiculous. It's a man who doesn't trust his defence. We've talked about this a little bit in recent times. I know he came in at number 7 today, but he was carded at 6. The only reason he didn't bat at 6 as planned was because they went with Jadeja at 5 to mix up the left-hand, right-hand thing, and we might come to that in a little bit. But yeah, the collapse at that stage, 127 for 7, with Pant getting out that way, you're thinking, well, it's an all-out 140, isn't it? We know the way the Indian tail has failed to wag more often than not, with the notable exception of Lords in the second innings, of course. But then Shardul, he's not the kind of guy to resign from a challenge. I like that he did take it on. I loved his response when they brought up their 50 partnership, he and Umesh Yadav. I mean, it's meant to be Umesh Yadav playing that way, remember. Umesh Yadav has got 17 sixes in Test cricket and 35 fours. He hits a 6 for every 2 fours. He's meant to be the one trying to clear the ropes, not Thakur, but he did 3 times, and it was a great response when he cleared deep square leg to bring up his half century. And yes, I didn't know that it was the quickest half century in England. I must say, halfway through the middle session, when Kohli gets dropped by Joe Root, I'm kind of thinking, well, this is Kohli's day, right? We've been waiting for this. It's been a long time between drinks when it comes to international centuries, 51 innings, and then he just gets a great passage of bowling from Ollie Robinson, nicks one through. We talked a lot about Kohli's vulnerability, if you want to call it that, outside the off stump. This wasn't quite that. He absolutely had to play at that delivery from Ollie Robinson. It was an exceptional piece of bowling from a guy who continues to impress. He picked up 3 wickets alongside Wokes' 4. But yeah, then you've got this lower order who did managed to wag. And look, I think at one stage we were saying at T, well, if they get to 200, that's vaguely credible. Well, 191's not far away from that, which means they come out to bowl and the energy of the Test match has changed. Jeff, we talk about this all the time on The Final Word. And Bumrah 2 wickets in an over, and it's turned on its head. Very different story if it's all out 130 in a limp display. Getting it up to 191 means they've got a bit of spring in the step as they start the second innings of the Test match, and they take that through to day 3, or day 2 rather, because they get the 3rd wicket. It's Joe Root. It's a visionary piece of captaincy from Kohli to swing Umesh back to the Vauxhall end to bowl the last over from that end for the day, kind of from nowhere as well. I thought he'd just bowl Siraj for the final over, but no, he moves Umesh from the pavilion end to the Vauxhall end and then through the gate with a glorious off-cutter. Not an awful lot that Root could do about that, clipping the off-bail, and here they are at 53 for 3, and I would go as far to say is that it's honours shared.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, given England's frailties with the bat so far, given Ollie Pope's coming in off not much cricket, England could go on and bat well tomorrow, but they're no certainty of doing that. I find it fascinating watching this England team at the moment because we know how frail they are with their batting, aside from Root. They're a team that can be put under pressure really easily, but they're a team that can really put you under pressure, particularly if they're able to bowl first, because that's their strength, their comparative advantage. And they were relentless this morning. The way they went at the openers and got both of them cheaply. Wokes coming back in and just that point of difference that nobody had faced him so far in the series. Yep. And the bounce that he got, I mean, you don't necessarily think of Chris Wokes as pitching it up and swinging it, but he got that terrific bounce to get Rohit Sharma basically gloving one through to the cordon. He was moving the ball appreciably when he was pitching it up, and there was always that feeling that a wicket was coming through that morning session. The next one was coming and the next one was coming. I'm sure people will pile into Pujara because he played it one outside the off stump. That ball was heading for his middle stump before it swung away so late that he had no time to do anything else from James Anderson. Like this was brilliant bowling that they were facing in that first session. And of course the wickets fell. I really liked the move of Jadeja up to 5. We've been talking about that, saying that he hasn't had the opportunity to bat as well as he could because he's been batting with a very frail lower order. But you look at the scorecard and say he only made 10, but he was out there for a reasonable period of time. He did sort of help steady Kohli a little bit and sort of half did a job. He also got a good ball to be nicked off and wasn't doing anything stupid to get himself out. But that it felt like that's something that could have legs. Like maybe they should try that a few more times with Jadeja a bit higher up.
Yeah, just the second time in Test cricket he's walked out at number 5, the other being the Bangalore Test match, the thrilling Bangalore Test match of 2017 when they were chasing quick runs in the third innings. Yeah, and look, the similarity to day one at Leeds is that England bowled as a pack. On that occasion it was Sam Curran, today it was Chris Wokes, but all 4 bowlers were part of that. I know Anderson went for some runs early on, India got a little bit of a flyer, but he came back, changed ends, much as it was late in the day with Umesh Yadav, and gets that big important wicket of Pujara, who we know that if he sets himself and goes, he can be a real thorn in the side of England. So that didn't happen. KL Rahul Robinson pins him back, another failure for him. Good start to the series, but just tapering off a little bit. Now we're deeper into it. So, yeah, and then I mentioned Overton already, but it wasn't just the ball that he bowled to find Ajinkya Rahane's outside edge. It was a number of deliveries that had, I wouldn't say the steepling bounce of Robinson, or indeed even the back of the length bounce that he got in Australia in 17-18. This is a very different Craig Overton. We talked about him a little bit on the weekly show, but he does have genuine skills as an outswing bowler, and in England on a day like this, that's what you want. All the lights were on. I mean, it belied how nice the day became with the sun coming out after tea, but early on it was thick cloud. Lights were on, dark red Duke's ball and all the rest of it. You want guys who can swing it, and Overton certainly can. So yeah, they're a good group. Robinson and Overton have that extra height. We all know what James Anderson does, and Chris Wokes issued a timely reminder that now back from injury, he's a must-select in this team. So, 191 I think was a fair result for all the chances they created, which probably tallied about 15 or thereabouts with a couple of catches going down through the course of the day.
About 5 catches went down, I think, by the end of the day from England. They didn't have a good one. Bairstow won as well. But Virat Kohli's batting, I get a bit sick of talking about it's always about Virat Kohli's personality, his captaincy, his selections. I do feel the frustration at Ashwin not being in this team through the whole series and so on. But just watching him purely bat today, he played beautifully today, like easily the best that he's played in the series. His strides into the drives through cover, his drives down the ground, the firmness of his drives through mid-on when he plays that on drive, he looked better than he's looked for a long time. He played out some very difficult spells. He had wickets falling at the other end, and he pressed on to a half century. And the ball that he got out to, it was a little bit strange, that one. He was closing the face and trying to play that through mid-wicket. I think he thought that the ball was going to deck into him, as Robinson often does, and in the end it actually decked the other way. I don't think it was even an outside edge. I reckon it took the ridge on the back of the bat was how it looks to me watching it live, because Kohli was turning the bat to the onside. So an unlucky dismissal in a way, but also a complete misreading of the delivery, and that's what Robinson's been able to do, is perplex players about where it's going to go and what's actually coming down at them. But it was a very good piece of bowling to get rid of him when he looks like he might be on to go for the big one today, as you said.
Yeah, look, that little press lounge, Chef, here at the Oval, where we sit to have lunch and all the rest of it. About half a dozen of us were sitting in there watching Kohli lace about 3 drives through extra cover. I was on air for one of them as well with Phil Walker, who was laughing in the summariser chair because he couldn't believe what a beautiful shot it was. But yeah, he was in that kind of mood. I think you're right. Sometimes we think of the complete package with Kohli, and we neglect the bit about him being a stylist and a glorious player, not just an accumulator as he might be at one-day level. At Test level, when on song, he's a beautiful player to watch as well. So there were signs of that. He was going through the gears. It all looks right. In fact, I tweeted, Kohli is on. He's beyond 50, and literally within 15 seconds, he's dismissed, which is my fault. Yep. I should never say such stupid things on social media. It always comes to bite you in the bum. But yeah, so look, Kohli. he did a lot right today, gets a good ball, so what? That's cricket. And I feel the same way about the Rahane dismissal, by the way, to double back on that. The criticism that will inevitably come of Rahane, if you bat well, then you get a good ball, that's the game. If you don't like that, then don't watch cricket. There's lots of other sports, loads of other sports. If you don't like the idea of someone playing well, then getting a good ball, he's allowed to be bowled well at. That's permitted. That's part of the sport. So, it doesn't look good in the runs column. He made 13 or 15 or whatever it was, but he was putting in a shift until that point. Pujara, as you say, fell victim to Anderson for the umpteenth time, got a good one. So, great conditions for bowling. England took advantage, but as did India. The little inside edge from Rory Burns. How about it being like the complete replica of the ball that came before it? Twice in a row, an inside edge. He played it so late the first time that he almost steered it onto the base of middle stump. It just ballooned over the top of the woodwork. And the second one, back onto the middle stump. The really problematic dismissal, we've talked a little bit about Rishabh Pant already, and who knows why he was playing the way he was, where he was today. It was thoroughly out of step with what the game needed. But so was Hasib Hamid on nothing, trying to play an uppercut of Jasprit Bumrah to complete what was already a successful over. I'm not quite sure what was going through his mind. I know he cut the ball really well last week, and he seemed to be leaving it well too. The ball before that was a very similar delivery that he left at the last possible moment, just got the bat out of the way, and that was clearly the appropriate shot at the time. But I suppose you can forgive a guy for getting out cheaply as an opener. That will happen. It's just the shot selection makes it look all that much worse. And Umesh Yadav, we've already talked about the bit of captaincy from Kohli, but an excellent piece of skillful bowling. His stock delivery is the outswinger, but the one going the other way, and root falls for exactly 100 fewer runs than he made last week. His brilliant run has come to an end for now, at least, because until that point he'd already reached 20 in like 15 balls, and you're thinking, here we go again. But that won't be the case. So we come back tomorrow. David Malan, a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I say pressure, not so much around his position in the team, but the game situation. He's going to have to bat well with the night watchman Overton initially, and then steering the middle order.
Yeah, it's a quality night watchman though. I was watching the county cricket today, and Mason Crane batted from last night until after tea on the fourth day to save a match for Hampshire. Did
he get a ton?
A good. No, he didn't. He made 28 off 197 balls to draw the match.
Good on him.
A good night watchman can be very valuable. But yeah, it's an interesting one. If I had been picking this Indian team, the player I would have got Ashwin in for would have been Umesh Yadav. I would pick Ashwin as a better all-round package in any test match on the planet than Umesh, who I love as a cricketer, but that would have been my comparison. But he's the one who's produced a bit of bowling to get rid of the most important player in the England side. To get Joe Root for 21 in the first innings is massive for India's chances of trying to force themselves into a winning position in this match. So, it's fascinating how you never know anything in cricket. As much as you think you might know, you never know a thing. You wouldn't have known that Shardul Thakur would have done what he did. Absolutely, my Hall of Fame moment was that six that he hit over deep, wide, long on. It was so clean off the bat, so fresh and so clean. Ain't nobody dope as Shardul Thakur. Like, he just cleaned it out, and the sound off the bat, the arc that the ball described, there are sixes and then there are sixes, and that was just a beautiful piece of batting.
Geoff, I had a Hall of Fame moment. I WhatsApped it to you, and I've completely forgotten what it was. But I'm sure whatever it was
to do with the run out.
Of course, it was the Bumrah being run out for a diamond duck for reasons that are best articulated by him after. It would have been Shardul was dropped, and in comes Umesh trying to run the 100 metres. Not Umesh, rather. It was Jasprit Bumrah trying to run the 100 metres, and Rory Burns has enough time to stop, prop, and throw down the middle stump. And poor old Jasprit Bumrah, who was improving his test best through the two first matches of the series, hasn't made a run since and didn't face a ball today. So that's my Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think it was after Shardul had been dismissed, and then Umesh edged it into the slips. And,
right, okay.
The quick turnaround from Rory Burns, it was very sharp with the direct hit, but caught him well short. And David Bowie's Diamond Ducks, if you will. Never a good way to go in any form of cricket. So, where are we? We don't know. India could come back tomorrow and roll them over for 100, or England could come back tomorrow and David Malan makes a ton. We don't know. That's why we keep watching. And maybe that's why you'll keep watching, because we'll be doing the Daily Show every day that there's a test match in this series. It's been brilliant so far. Thanks to everyone for watching and subscribing. We've got 22,000 or so people signed up to the channel, which is awesome. Hit the button if you'd like to, or visit us on patreon.com/thefinalword. Geoff Lemon, Adam Collins, we'll see you on day 2.
No.